So the next guitarist I want to touch upon very briefly, which is kind of it's a non sequitur, but I think it'll be useful, and that is, I've brought him up many times with you, and I even shared some stuff. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do a breakdown, a little attempt at you trying to deconstruct a song at another time.
Okay.
But that's Lindsey Buchkingham, and you had some interesting comments about him and a couple of others that were related. I'd like you to share them, because people really don't understand where you come from. You come from correct technique first, primarily.
Technique and tone are two of my primary things that I look for in guitar players. Lindsey has, his technique, he's overcome less than stellar technique, as has Pat Metheny. I hate the way Pat Metheny holds a pick. I love everything he plays.
Well, Paul McCartney was another great example you gave me.
Pretty unorthodox what he does, and so they made unorthodox things work for them.
Right.
And they are not you. It's like they're not 98% of the people out there playing the guitar. So they managed to overcome these technical challenges by just sheer hard work and ability and skill.
And time in the game. I want to point this out.
That's another thing.
See,
how old has Lindsey's been playing since he was 10 years old?
But that's all he did as well.
Right.
So the idea that you can go off to a job, come home, practice for an hour, and this was their life. They'd sit on their bed and play guitar for 5 hours, and then go out to a gig and play again, and so on.
The Beatles had 6 nights a week playing 8 hours a night in Hamburg.
Right. Talk about practice.
Yeah. So they got those songs down really well.
Right. So Lindsey, I've played a few songs because he has some unbelievable finger-picking tunes that just are beautiful, beautiful. And when he plays acoustically, in fact, his last album, which I bought, Shrew, Taming of the Shrew, or something like that.
That wasn't the live one.
No.
Okay, we were listening to something live of his the other day.
Right, and that's what we're going to deconstruct.
Okay.
But his Shrew album, all new songs, just some amazing tunes in there. Mm-hmm. But as you pointed out, his technique is not. And hard to teach, bad technique.
It's hard to teach, you don't want to play his songs with his technique.
Right.
And the big thing, if I was working with him, I would really have him concentrate on his tone. His tone, he doesn't have enough control over the sound he gets out of playing notes. And
so there you have it. If Neil was working with Lindsey, Lindsey, if you're listening, mate, there's a free lesson.
Yeah.
Dave Gilmore, you're crap as well. You might as well come over for a free lesson as well.
He needs finger-picking lessons. He doesn't need tone lessons.
No, he doesn't. He's got the best tone of all, in my opinion.
Guitars,
on an electric guitar.
But he's got fabulous tone, but he needs finger-picking chops.
Well, there you go. Free lessons for you two.
David and Lindsey, look me up.
Yeah.
PM me, guys.
And that's all I wanted to say for now, but I just wanted to give you that feel, and it's hopefully you'll get something out of this.
Actually, so let me say one more thing about Lindsey. He does come up with some great things. So he's very creative. And like a lot of other people, the creative side. I don't know if I'm able to get this out very cleanly or clearly, but the creative side takes over, and the tone of what he's getting out of the guitar is only a really small picture or part of the picture.
Right.
And whether that would change everybody's perception of the song or enjoyment of the song or something, it's just something I am overly sensitive to when I listen to acoustic guitar players. It's why I love John Renbourn, and why there are other ones that I listen to and I say, oh man, they got to work on your tone, man. It doesn't matter what notes you're playing right there. I can't take it. Stefan Grossman, that's who I was trying to think of right there. Two really influential people on me, John Renbourn and Stefan Grossman. And their tone they're black and white. And Grossman's tone drives me up a wall. And Renbourn's I love. And everybody else is probably somewhere in between. And most of what I've heard from Lindsey, I'd like to just hear it
tighten it up.
Yeah. But he's got great things. I love doing that lesson on, and as people probably know, when we did that lesson on Never Going Back, we didn't do it the way he plays it, because actually he can make some stretches that most people can't.
Right.
So I slightly simplified it by going into a different tuning. It's the exact same notes. Matter of fact, it's one of those things where had he thought about it a little bit more, he might have even done it that way.
Actually, that's a great point, and I'd like to add this in, because for anybody watching who wants the note-for-note version of a song, you're not going to get that all the time, because it doesn't make any sense for us to teach it that way.
Especially if it's somebody with compromised techniques.
Right.
Matter of fact, the same song I'm working on today, I've modified quite a bit. I've been listening to it again, the one you'll see next week in our second drip feed. I've modified it quite a bit to make it more approachable,
right?
And really even more musical, because there's too much slop in it the way it was originally done back in the early 70s.
And then you combine that with people's perception that you hear a song which has 8 instruments in and vocals, and people go, well, how come the song doesn't sound the same when you teach it? I want a refund. Well, here's your refund, guys, because we could never do that.
Because we didn't throw in the keyboard parts and the bass part and the strings and
Although we are, well, you are, frankly. I'm not doing anything, but...
well, actually, the song you're working on is a great example of that, which again we'll get to in a few months. Because it's one that the overall effect of the band playing it is very different, and when the guy that wrote it plays it by himself,
you can't do it. He can't do it.
Runs out of gas.
He can't do it. Right.
Because I remember we that one thing he was playing it with just a piano player, and right at the end he goes, and so on and so on.
Right.
It's like through about a third of half of the song, and then bails.
I'm hoping we can actually embellish what I'm doing a little
and make it a solo song,
and that'll come out. But the thing is, when Neil deconstructs a song that has, a bass and a lead and a drum and a keyboard and vocals and an acoustic or whatever, you're still combining as many elements of the song as you can. So anybody who doesn't understand that really doesn't understand. You can never make it sound the same. But I personally think that some of the deconstructions that you've done sound better than the original, and some sound different, not worse. And I had to overcome that myself, because when you're conditioned to hear the original and you go, that's the song, and then you hear a different version, you go, I don't,
that little fill in there.
I don't like that because it's not the same as what I've heard. No, it's different.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to really grok that. And when you hear people do covers, good covers, but you still dismiss them because you're conditioned to the original.
Right.
You have to give that up and have a look at... And I'll give you an example. There is... I'm trying to remember the name of the guy. He's a current folk singer-songwriter. And he covered Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing song, acoustically.
Nani, do you know who we're talking about?
Ben Harper.
Oh, okay.
And he covers that, and he covers The Drugs Don't Work by The Verve. 2 songs. I mean, you couldn't get 2 songs further apart.
Right.
He both does finger picking on both of them. Sexual Healing, he does in an incredible way. First time I heard that song again, not the Marvin Gaye version, and not Marvin Gaye, who was an incredible singer, carry that. And I just thought, wow, I respect that. I would love to be able to do that. And then The Verve, if you've never heard this song, go and check it out. The Drugs Don't Work is one of the most emotional songs of the late 90s. When Blur and Oasis were the 2 big Brit bands head-to-head.
Okay.
And they were firing pot shots across each other in the press. Damien Albarn, who was actually more talented than the 2 Gallagher brothers, he was the leader of Blur. And the 2 Gallagher brothers were running Oasis. And Oasis were doing incredible things, touring the world. And then Blur came out with their album and blew everybody away, starting with a song called Song 2. And then they threw out album after album. And it was this fight that went on. But then The Verve jumped in, this band called The Verve, and they threw out these songs that were they were pared back compared to these overproduced Blur and Oasis albums. But so raw and emotional, and the lyrics and so on, and stunning. And I'm going to actually post a couple of songs to go with this, so you get this, because you may never have heard these guys before. Yeah. But Ben Harper covered The Drugs Don't Work, and just turned this song into a completely different version, and I had a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And then just to follow up on the wrap-up with Damon Albarn, just in case you don't know who he is, he then went on and started the Gorillaz. Now, the Gorillaz were the first band to ever show up with just a cartoon, and you never saw the band.
Oh.
And you never knew who they were or anything unless you knew music. And the Gorillaz are massive. And it's like his little band that he controls. He's the guy. And now he's gone into film scoring and so on. The guy's so talented.